The reason that people don't have appreciation is because the capital they're invested in is depreciating or decaying, right? So think about every way you ever lost money in an investment. The warehouse caught fire, NVIDIA gets banned from China, Apple gets sued by the EU, Microsoft gets sued for antitrust, COVID lockdowns destroy your hotel, people don't come to your restaurant, the mayor reroutes the traffic around, your business district, a crooked CEO takes over and loots the money, you invested in the world's best business in Argentina and the currency collapse, you own a monopoly on Russian bakeries and the war takes place, trade wars, tariff wars, acts of God. All of these things are degrading risk factors to physical capital or to equity capital. Bitcoin doesn't have them. It has no counterparty risk. It doesn't. There is no CEO to rip you off, right? There is nothing in the real world. So the reason that Bitcoin outperforms the S&P index is because there's 50 pages of risk factors for every company in the S&P index, and we strip them all away, and we just keep the raw asset. The reason it outperforms gold is because gold inflates at 2% a year and Bitcoin inflates at 0% a year. You might think that's a small number. The difference between 2% inflation and 0% inflation is the half-life of your wealth at 2% is 36 years. The half-life of your wealth at 0% is forever. It's the difference between you'll live 70 years or you'll live for 1 billion years. 2%. When people tell you 2% doesn't matter, it matters a lot. So the real breakthrough of Bitcoin is it is perfect money. It is the first perfect commodity which there's zero inflation, without the attack surfaces of a corporation, without the physical presence of a building. You want me to tell you every single way you can lose money investing in real estate in New York City? Who just got elected mayor? Think about it. What happens when the politician decides to rent control your building and then just maybe they'll just take it? The nicest hotel in I think in Cannes was the brainchild of a great developer, and he managed to finish the hotel in 1913. In 1914, a war broke out. The French government seized the hotel, turned it into an army hospital. The guy went bankrupt, died destitute. Oops. Don't want to own something that's desirable at the point when someone more powerful than you wants to take it away from you. And that's pretty much the story of most things. So Bitcoin is all the good things about property without all the physical liabilities, all the good things about a monopoly. What do you like about Apple and Google? They're monopolies. What does the EU not like? They're monopolies. The EU, right? The point is the Chinese don't like that. You think the Chinese want an American monopoly operating in China? Right, so the problem with monopolies operated by human beings is you can subpoena them and you can arrest the CEO of the monopoly. And by the way, it's illegal, right? Monopolies are illegal, right? If you form a cartel and restrain a trade to cut, if you actually organized all the gold miners and they all agreed they just stopped mining gold forever, that's illegal. You go to jail. How do you actually create a scarce, desirable asset on a global basis that's not illegal? You need to create a protocol, and you need to instantiate the protocol virally without a counterparty or a company involved. So Bitcoin just happens to be a perfect monetary protocol that was spawned by an immaculate conception, and as such, it's always going to outperform other capital assets because it has none of their defects. Right? It just, you've stripped away. The idea of Bitcoin is what? I want to own 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever. Okay, tell me the problem with that idea. You want to own 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever. When will that be obsolete? 10,000 years ago, people were murdering each other to own the money in the world. 10,000 years from now, they'll still want it. So, I'm on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, okay? The second best idea has gone through 37 different iterations, right? It obsolesces. But 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever? That will outlast every country. That'll outlast your language. That'll outlast every company. So we can differ about, you might not think 30% is the right number. It's my view based upon all the statistics of the last 17 years. But what I would say to you there is, if you don't think it's the right number, I'm willing to do a swap for you. If you go by STRC, STRC pays 10.5% dividend yield with no volatility, and it's tax deferred. So you can have the first 10.5% risk-free, and I'll take the rest. And if I'm wrong, then you got 10.5% guarantee. And if you actually believe me, then you shouldn't take that deal, right? But as a practical matter, if you don't need the money for the next 4 years, you should buy Bitcoin. If you're industrious, you could create a company to raise capital to buy 10x more or 100x more Bitcoin. But if you're skeptical, then you should just determine whether Bitcoin's going to zero tomorrow forever. If it is, don't buy Bitcoin, don't buy anything related to Bitcoin. But if you think, well, it's kind of volatile and I don't know whether it's going up 10% or 20% or 5% or going down or whatever, then you just ought to go buy STRC, because that's digital credit. That's a guaranteed 10.5% dividend, tax deferred. That's a tax equivalent bank account of 20% if you're a New Yorker. The way to think about the crypto industry is there are two sides to it. There's digital finance and there's digital capital. Digital capital means digital gold, long-term store of value. Okay, Bitcoin is one that. In order to have digital capital, you need a proof of work network that's energy intensive. Bitcoin is 99% dominant in that space. What's the killer use case of digital capital? Digital credit, right? Digital credit on top of digital capital, that will be a $100 trillion type side. There's another side of the industry, digital finance. That means moving stable coin, digital tokenized currency, tokenized security, tokenized bonds, tokenized real world assets, tokenized brands, Trump coin, meme coin, Katy Perry token, tokenized country club memberships, tokenized restaurant memberships, Joe Rogan coin, tokenized Apple stock. I mean, it's not all jokey. I mean, it's like $10 trillion of tokenized US currency. It's a serious industry. That business will be dominated by proof-of-stake networks. Ethereum, Solana, BNB are the big three, and there's a bunch of others that are competing. And the crypto exchanges, and that's in and of itself, there's $100 trillion of stuff to get tokenized. I don't know if there's $100 trillion of wealth that'll be created, but there'll be trillions of dollars of wealth created. When you're investing in that industry, you're a tech investor. There's some regulatory gray zone. When the market structure bill, the Clarity Act, gets passed either later this year or early next year, you will have bright lines as to what assets you can tokenize and what are the risks and then what are the opportunities. Right now it's in the gray zone. There's general political consensus that we should do it, that we want the United States to lead it, but it's really 100 different opportunities and they're all very competitive. And the question is, are we going to move $1 trillion of tokenized US currency on the Solana network or on the BNB network or on some other network? And the reason I'm waxing philosophical about Bitcoin is not complicated, right? There's a winning language called the English language. There's a winning math protocol. It's Arabic numerals, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. Right? There's a winner. There's a winning digital capital network. It's Bitcoin. There's a winning world reserve currency. It's the dollar. There's a winning superpower. It's the United States, right? There are certain winners. There's a winning metallic money. It's called gold, the gold standard. So it wasn't clear it was the winner 17 years ago, but after $1 trillion of votes and after hundreds of millions of people have decided, the smart money has decided that's the winner. Once you know there's a winner, like I'm telling you New York City is going to win and the year is 1750 and you have the chance to buy New York City at a higher price than anybody ever paid in the history of New York City, is it a good investment? And the answer is yeah, it's going to be a good investment every decade for the next 250 years. Yeah, there is no existential risk to it. I think that's not something to worry about. The 4-year cycles were meaningful for the first 12 years. They became less meaningful, by the end of the 16th year. Right now, you're talking about a halving that's coming that will reduce the supply of Bitcoin by $25 billion a day. Bitcoin's trading $60 billion a day. 25 million is not even a second order issue. It's a third order issue with liquidity. So that the 4-year cycles have disappeared for all practical purposes because they're an order or 2 orders of magnitude less than the amount of capital in the market. With regard to the second point you make on security, the security of the network is because of mining. The hash rate of Bitcoin miners was about 100 exahash in 2020, and it dipped to 70 or 80 exahash in 2021 after the China lockdowns. It's 1,200 exahash today. It has increased by a factor of 10. The mining activity will continue to increase, and the hash rate is going to go up forever. And the reason it's going up forever is because the cost to mine, the hardware is getting exponentially cheaper. And so it's like, think about how much it costs to buy a 386 chip today, or a 40, it used to be there was a $300 chip, and then it became a 30-cent chip, and people put it in postage cards as a gag. And that's the same with Bitcoin ASICs. The hardware is getting exponentially cheaper. They're going to sell it at a dramatically reduced rate. And you would say, well, it doesn't seem like the miners are making much money. That's true, but restaurants aren't making any money, and hotels aren't making any money. And you know what? You can't make it. There's no successful person making money selling guns in the United States either. And yet somehow we have infinite restaurants, infinite hotels, and infinite guns. So think about that for a little bit. What is the market telling you? The answer is people mine Bitcoin with stranded energy and stranded capital. And that means there's a lot of money in the world that is stranded and it wants to get unstranded. And the people in China, the Chinese were mining Bitcoin because they had Three Gorges Dam, which generates 10 gigawatts of free electricity. And it's like, I can either use it to mine Bitcoin and monetize it, or I cannot, but I'm stuck with dams and they're not moving, right? So the world's 30% of the energy in the world is stranded. It's excess, and the only place to sell it is the Bitcoin network. But on the other hand, if you're Chinese or Russian or Ukrainian or Iranian or North Korean or Cuban or Venezuelan right now, how do you actually get money, right? Like at the end of the day, you're going to have Siberian natural gas fields, and they're flaring natural gas. They're going to convert into Bitcoin hashes. So no matter what the block reward goes to, the network is just getting more secure. It's a one-way ratchet exponentially up forever. It's like, one more point. Bitcoin's secured by hardware. If everybody in this room is a billionaire, you've got economic energy, and I've got the gun, who's the most powerful person in the room? Me. The gun costs $200. When you actually use hardware to secure money, right, the cost of the security falls exponentially. I can literally stand outside the door with a $200 device, right, and depend $200 billion worth of money. What's going on with Bitcoin is they're using hardware. They're using the computer hash rate to defend the network. And there's always stranded energy and stranded capital. And after that, it's like, well, you think the United States will stop making guns if it's not profitable? I don't think so. Right? Why do we make guns if no one makes any money? The answer is because we don't want the enemies to shoot us. Right? So at the end of the day, Bitcoin will be mined by nation states. Right? If I have $100 trillion of money on the network, you think I'm not going to actually defend the network? Of course.